Welcome to For the Purpose Of, the podcast where we navigate the intersection of technology and the world of education. I'm Keith Tramper.
And I'm Ron Houtman.
And I'm Sarah Wood. And today we will be talking about the evolving role of the teacher, how technology is changing teachers' roles, discussing blended learning, lit classrooms, and how teachers can use technology to enhance instruction.
All right, so we always start out every one of our podcasts with a question to get your brains working a little bit. So in the greater Grand Rapids area in Kent County, we had a pretty wild storm that came through about a week and a half ago or so, and we had some large-scale power outages that took quite a few days to get resolved, mostly because of the plethora of trees that decided to entangle themselves in the overhead electrical wires like they often do. And to include, we also had some schools that were out for a little bit of time here too. You know, school's supposed to start, and a couple of them are delayed because of no power, and then we had some heat-related things. So we always want to think about, as an educator, what's your plan B? So we're going to talk very briefly here about, like, what is our plan B at our house to start out with? So just thinking about, if you don't have electricity and you never really know how long this is going to last, what is your preparation and your plan B, Sarah?
I live on the edge. I take it as it comes. I don't necessarily prepare. This is the story of my life. I take it as it comes. So I'll make sure that power banks are charged, that we have a plan in place with the kids, like go through and make sure you turn off any lights that you know we're on and things like that. But we kind of take it as an opportunity to disconnect for a little bit. I don't think anyone, as far as I know, has recorded their death due to lack of internet. And so we embrace that. During this last storm, when we had to go downstairs into our safe place, we actually took advantage of the fact that we had a set of snap circuits downstairs. So we built a little light. So we had that because that happened really quickly where we were at and literally did not have time to grab much and run downstairs. So we just kind of take it as a good opportunity.
Yeah, you never know when you have to MacGyver something. So
I know.
It's good to practice.
Snap circuits to the rescue.
So Keith, what's your plan out there where you live?
Yeah, I think I'm with Sarah on a lot of this, living on the edge. But we try to keep a lot of power banks charged up at the house in case of an emergency. We also do have like a battery backup on our Wi-Fi and internet. So we've always got that, at least for a few hours after the power goes out. And, I guess our plan C is if it's going to be a long time, then we may head to some family. We've got some family that live a little further south and out of town. And ideally, if we lose power, we can go down there. So that's kind of my backup plan. What about you, Ron?
I'm the complete opposite of just figure out what happens as it happens. So I'm not going to call myself a doomsday prepper, but I've got enough stuff where I think I can be self-sufficient for at least 2 weeks at my house. So anywhere from preparing my generator, which is on my Google Calendar to remind me every month on a Saturday to go outside and to go pull start it once, check the oil. I fill it up with gasoline that won't go bad, which is the recreational gas, which costs $6 a gallon. It's expensive stuff, but it works. It's the same stuff I put in everything that is going to sit around for a while. A few of those larger battery, sometimes they call them generators, and I don't understand why they call them a generator because you have to charge them, but they're the bigger ones that you can run pretty major stuff on if you really need to. Even in the basement, there's water down there that I keep. Even though I'm on city water, I just think about it. If I have to bail out of the house for some reason, it might be easier to take a couple gallon jugs of water with you. So I just do that because of background, I guess, and how many emergencies that I've been through and, prior jobs of knowing what happens to populations of people when people panic. Everybody's heading to the Costco to go strip the store of, what do we call it? Like French toast emergency? Bread, milk, eggs.
Toilet paper.
French toast, toilet paper. Well, I mean, you have to really think about, during the first days of the pandemic when, it was like locusts stripping the stores of the toilet paper. And you're like, oh, I still don't understand. Do either of you understand that? Why toilet paper? This wasn't a gastrointestinal issue. I don't get it.
Well, I guess we can be grateful that people are prioritizing hygiene. So
Yeah,
let's look at it that way.
I suppose. I That's why you probably should just go to Amazon right now and just buy yourself a bidet and attach it to your toilet. You should be just fine. So other than that, so the big picture reason, why we asked this too is, as a teacher, because we had some schools that were affected by power outages, they weren't at school, but we also have recently had a few schools that have lost power during the daytime. So just thinking about what your plan B is, in your classroom, what sort of preparation you have, and especially technology wise too, as a teacher, if you lose access to internet, what happens, right? So I want you to just think about that. Just, put in your mind is, what is your plan B as a teacher when your Chromebooks won't connect to the Google or Google Classroom or whatever LMS you might be using? And what happens when you don't have access to your displays in your school or just full internet outage like that? You always want to have like a paper backup of something you can do with your kids.
Chisel on some clay tablets.
Yep. Pencils, crayons, paper, I don't care if they're 11th and 12th graders, everybody likes to color. So
they can always sketch note, right?
Yeah.
So I think this is a great segue actually into our first topic that we're going to talk about today, and really embracing change and thinking about how we can prepare and do things a little bit differently, because there's a lot of different technologies that are emerging with like intelligent assistants, looking at blended learning and flipped classrooms becoming more common in schools. So we're going to kind of discuss like how we see the role of teachers evolving within this new environment, and what opportunities and challenges that teachers face as they leverage these new technologies to enhance instruction and connect with their students. So I'm curious what Keith has to say about this.
All right, I'll start us out with the problem that we always have as teachers, which is we never have enough time and there's never enough of us to go around. So one thing I would love to see teachers do more, and I think makes a ton of sense, is actually something that I pulled from Modern Classrooms Project. They use the term multiply yourself. And it's the idea of using blended learning in your classroom, not flipped classroom, but blended learning. So you might record yourself a video of directions of how you might use a certain activity in your classroom, or instruction of a topic for that day. Something relatively short and sweet, but takes the instruction off of your plate so that you can then go and teach alongside yourself, right? So as your students are watching those videos, you are able to be there next to them and support them along the way. So I think the technology is it's progressed enough that this is a relatively easy thing to do. There's been a lot of improvement there. It's more of an adjustment in the way we teach. So the technology's caught up. Now we need to think about how to use it productively.
And I think also preparing students for that as well, too.
Yeah. I hear you say too, Keith, the time thing, right, is just reflecting back on my first few years of teaching. And I know we have, a lot of younger educators out there coming into the practice too, is the first few years is it's very difficult trying to manage the amount of time you're spending on things, doing lesson development or preparation, and also balancing that with figuring out who you are as a teacher in the classroom with regard to classroom management. You feel like you're on a treadmill all the time. So it takes a few years to really get into your stride where, you don't feel just completely worn out at the end of the day. It's not to say don't go into the profession. It's a lot of it is just trying to figure out, how you're going to do this really difficult job. So I guess the other thing I'm just thinking about this too is the tools that we talk about, Keith. When you start to think about, like you mentioned, the Modern Classroom Project, what are some good suggestions for teachers, like real practical, like top 3 lists of things that they might want to start doing right now?
Yeah. Well, first, I think you want to get comfortable with a tool. There's a handful of different tools for recording your own videos. So things like Screencastify or Loom make it so simple. Click a button and start recording. It's that easy. I think the second thing is probably a way to share it. Think through how you're going to get it into your students' hands. If you're using an LMS, a learning management system, something like Canvas or possibly Google Classroom, although you can debate whether that's a learning management system or not. You have to have a place to share it with your kids, to get it into their hands easily, especially if they're much younger students. And then I guess I would say the third thing is a lot of us have a fear of recording ourselves. I still sometimes struggle with that. But one thing that helped me, especially through the Modern Classroom project, is lightening that pressure on yourself, that it's okay to make mistakes, and it's okay to just leave the mistakes in the video. You don't have to stress about re-recording over and over and stressing yourself out for an hour before you finally just give up and don't ever record a video. It's okay. So take a few deep breaths, calm yourself, and try to let the mistakes go, let the imperfections go.
Yeah, that's, I would say, a very good practice. I do that in my videos. I just say, oh, never mind that, or just disregard whatever that was and just keep going, because there is a term or an idiom, whatever we might call this thing, perfect is the enemy of the good. Yep. That would be a saying, wouldn't it? I don't know. Anyway, I don't have the English words this morning for some reason. So just thinking about, again, with artificial intelligence stuff that's coming, I've been talking to lots of folks. I think we've said it a few times in the prior podcast about where we are in the hype cycle with regard to everybody's freaking out about ChatGPT and artificial intelligence and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I think the big thing we want teachers to realize is that, so the question always comes up, what do you consider to be cheating? Well, everything, I guess. Thinking about using those artificial assistants or students using those things to really help them. So I think we're going to get into a really new wave. Maybe it's the second or third wave of personalizing education for kids. And I know, Keith, that's something you've talked a little bit about too, but I think now we're going to get into a point where we've got the power of every kid to have their own personal oracle in their pocket all the time. So, based on what they might be interested in, they can ask questions that maybe the teacher doesn't have enough experience in or never really thought about it in that way, where the students could ask the intelligent assistant, whatever we want to refer them to, that would help the students. I think further, when you look at some of the things like Khan Academy is doing with their Khanmigo project, having a personalized tutor available to you 24/7 as a kid, where it can help you get unstuck. This is going to be baked into everything we're going to see going forward. And I think as teachers, we need to really realize what teaching students in the age of AI is going to look like, and not to see it as a threat at all. I don't see it as a threat, and I don't think a lot of people do, unless it takes over like Skynet, which some people say, but I don't believe that either. I think there's a lot of really great opportunity here to finally get to personalized education for kids, things that they're really interested in. They can ask questions, and the chat GPTs, the AIs will start leading them in directions that they may have not anticipated, and you wouldn't ever as an educator as well. So
yeah, I was trying to think of a way to phrase it, and I came up with learn to walk alongside AI, not against it.
Yeah.
Right. So learn how to, it's not like you're competing against it. It's something where you need to be able to like hold hands with it and walk merrily into your future. Right.
Yeah. It's not the first time though. We've been talking about this as ed tech people forever, is that, education technology is there to amplify good teaching and learning practices, not to replace teachers. So this is just yet one more evolution in that whole idea, right? About using stuff to make you better or to assist you, or to sometimes the Google people would say to 10x you, to make you 10 times more efficient and effective. So, Sarah?
Yeah. And I think really looking at it as all of those things, whether it's AI, different technology tools, like they are like your co-pilot. You are still the pilot as the teacher, and they're just allowing you to do different things, have a little more flexibility. But I feel like it will never truly replace that human element that is necessary in the classroom. I think kind of too, along the same lines of Keith, as far as some of those things that are firmly rooted in the Modern Classroom project is like more personalized learning, student-driven learning. I think a lot of that is going to change because of some of those intelligent assistants. And I think hopefully we'll see more of a rise in that 3P learning where educators are leveraging problem, project, or place-based learning so that they are truly serving in that co-pilot role and allowing students to leverage the resources that they need to take their learning to a deeper level. Because with all of these available resources out there, it's easy enough to give students an assignment. They could Google it, they could chat GPT it, they could use a plethora of AI tools, and it can spit out basic things. Does that show they're learning? Maybe, maybe not, depending on how it was created. So I think learning to leverage that AI and all the different resources available as that co-pilot, as that guide on the side there, because really, I think at the end of the day, what we're doing is we're preparing students for their future world, not where we're at right now, and how they can learn to adapt and work within situations that are presented to them and know how to problem solve, whether they know the specific tools to use or not, but they can figure out a way to work through that. So that's kind of where I'm at. And I like how Keith had said, really multiplying yourself. And I think that's kind of where we're at, because we need that time. We need that back. We need to figure out how we can do our jobs more effectively and create that access for students and let go of our fears of all those what ifs, because dwelling on those what ifs isn't going to change the current situation.
Yeah, that's a good point. Thinking back to that multiplying again, I think AI can be used in a lot of ways to help teachers in that aspect of when you're low on energy and you're low on time. Anything that can make you more efficient is super helpful, right? And it's sometimes hard to come up with ideas for lessons or ways to connect or respond with students and parents. So that's where I see AI in the conversation too, is like, I don't even know where to start with this lesson, or I really want to make this more real world, more 3P like you're talking about. How the heck do I do that? And, ChatGPT is really good at coming up with lots of ideas. There might not all be good, but that's where the human element kind of comes into it, right? You got to use your discretion as a teacher and as a professional.
And I think sometimes like we do it in our personal lives, but we don't necessarily look at the applications. I think parents are superheroes to begin with, especially when you have multiple children and juggling multiple things. And then teacher parents are a whole other breed as far as all the things that you're juggling. And even simply thinking like, how can I prepare lunches for my kiddos? How can I get dinners prepared ahead of time? And think of what we do with meal planning. It's that same kind of thing. If you're, just thinking ahead and how can you leverage your time, your capacity, your resources. It's the same kind of thing, I think, in that digital world.
I think my favorite app, Sarah, that I noticed as AI was starting to freak out on us in, November of last year, was there was an app where you could use your phone and take a picture of the contents of your fridge, right? Oh. And it would like give you all these menus, right? So I think that, we're just, again, right at the beginning of this. We really don't know what this is going to look like, but I think the big thing is just not to approach it from a place of fear and a replacement, because it's not going to happen. I mean, it's pretty easy to see that after the pandemic. We learned a lot of things about what we really need in our classrooms. We need that human connection. We need the relationships between educator and student. Students need that together time. We're seeing all the artifacts of that now with regard to, just thinking about behaviors of kids and the things that they've missed during that period of time. And it's going to be kind of a ripple effect for the next, 12 years or so, or 10 years, I guess, at least. We're going to still see just little bits and pieces that I'm like, oh, that's where that came from. So it'd be interesting.
Well, it's interesting to hear our different reflection points and where we're kind of at. But I think at the root of all of it is we know that we need to embrace that change. We need to look at it as an assistant, a helper, so that we can be more effective in our personal and our professional lives. And with that being said, let's take a break and hear a message from one of our EdTech friends.
With staff shortages, family commitments, and long to-do lists, it can be a challenge to get the professional learning you need. We don't want you to miss out, so we created Podcast PDX, a free, community-based professional learning experience delivered to you. Each time we publish our podcast, we'll email you a reflection question. All you need to do is listen, reflect, and respond. You're already listening to our podcast, so why not earn free sketches for it? Register today at bit.ly/FTPOPDX. And a special thanks to our listeners who have already joined the Podcast PDX community. This episode's Podcast PDX question is, in what ways is technology changing your role in education? We look forward to seeing this topic through your eyes. Respond in the community at bit.ly/FTPOPDX. And welcome back. We're going to jump into another short question here and just kind of talk about different ways that technology are affecting us. So the question is, what is one way that your work is evolving with technology right now? And Sarah, we're going to start with you.
I think where I'm seeing a lot of movement right now is in what we're doing with professional learning and adult learning. I know that Keith and I are working on developing an EdTech and PL, and I think that that learning opportunity has really made me look at what we're doing through a different lens and look at it critically, look at our own work. I know we're big on reflection as part of our professional learning process, not just reflection from participants, but ourselves as facilitators and the experience that we provided. And I think that it really makes us be very intentional about how we're modeling strategies, providing resources that educators will find helpful from the teaching perspective, but also from the student learning perspective. And really, I think coming back to, at the end of the day, everything is not just accessible learning that we're creating, but really is universally designed for all.
Yeah, I agree. I'm really excited about the content that we're creating there and the reflection that we're doing. But I'm going to withhold my comments because that's one of the things I was going to share. Ron, what about you?
So one of the big things that I'm seeing coming out of, again, this is always the good reflection on the pandemic. I think we learned like 10 years worth of stuff in 2 years, right? How inefficient our organizations are and how we can use technology to make them more efficient. So my really upfront example about this is during the pandemic, there were so many different ways that were able to get services digitally. And even part of this, I think we've all seen is, like restaurants as an example. All of a sudden, these restaurants that never allowed you to pick up your food and order remotely, all of a sudden are doing that out of necessity. When we look at how schools are operated, yes, we're large bureaucracies sometimes, and we have lots of procedures and lots of paperwork. How might we, as an organization, transition from, as I refer to them, dead tree PDFs all over the place that are you never know where it is in any sense of time and place. When you send something to somebody, it could sit in their inbox, both physically and their inbox and email. How do we make things more efficient for our employees so they can spend less time doing that stuff and more stuff doing the important work that they have? So just thinking about digitizing different forms that we have. So we're doing that in our organization, especially a lot of the onboarding and HR kind of stuff, digitize, moving into some other business areas. Think about that for schools. How might we embrace this digital transformation that we should be doing in our schools? And it doesn't just affect the teachers and staff, it also affects kids with regard to how long it takes to do everything and how do we track that stuff. So that's a real big thing I'm just keep thinking about is how do we do this digitization and digital transformation in our organizations to spend less time on paperwork and copy machines and more time doing the important work that we have. Keith?
Yeah, for sure. That efficiency angle is really important for everybody to consider, organizations or individuals, for sure. Mine is very similar to what Sarah said in that it's redefining the way that we approach PD in our daily work. So being more intentional, I think I heard is a word that you said, Sarah, about just the way we go about things. So we've introduced things like roadmaps and progress trackers, which are just a way to use digital tools we already know, things like slides or Google Sheets, and just kind of using those to help people along and make more connections along the way in PD. We've learned a little bit more about leveraging online communities for our different PDs. Even though a lot of things happen face-to-face, we're seeing a lot more requests for things that are more online based and more asynchronous. And using that, we have to be more intentional about when we select things that need to be done face to face and when we choose to do things that need to be done asynchronously. So thinking about what's the most efficient use of time, knowing that time is a big factor. So it's interesting because I think over the past 10 years, there was this big explosion of EdTech tools where it felt like there was something new every single week. And then we went through this phase where it started to pare down and people were either fell off because they started charging money for different things or they combined with other tools. So we kind of have gotten down to this space where we have a handful of tools and we're a little more comfortable in using them. Now we have to be intentional about using them. I do think we're kind of approaching another start to this boom in technology through the AI lens, but I guess we'll approach it when we get there. All right, so in closing, I think we're looking at things that are going to help make us more efficient and more intentional about what we do with our teachers and with our students and just the people we work with every day. So how is technology making your work evolve? We want to hear from you. Let us know. You can email us at edtech@kentisd.org, or you can jump on our podcast PDX community and talk with us and other folks there.
And that's it for this episode of For the Purpose Of. And thank you for tuning in. And if you like this podcast, we'd love for you to share it with a friend.
So we wonder, what's your plan B? Because you know what? Winter is coming. So you should probably think about that a little bit. So if you want to let us know what your plan B is, we'd love to get your feedback about that. You can always reach out to us with our email address, edtech@kentisd.org, or reach us via our website with all kinds of cool information at bit.ly/IamEdTech. That's bit.ly/IamEdTech. And we'll catch you the next time on For the Purpose Of.
This podcast is a service of Kent ISD. It's produced by Ron Houtman, Sarah Wood, and Keith Tramper, and edited by Keith Tramper. Our theme music is Neon Nights by Scott Holmes Music, and our ad music is Vienna Beat by Blue Dot Sessions.
I just stopped.
Your brain seized.
Let's just take a break.
Let's just take a break.